wanted to come on here and give you a little recap of my Boston Marathon experience. So before going into my race recap, I just wanted to go back and talk about my training a little bit. The last time I ran a marathon was in November 2022. That is when I ran the Philadelphia Marathon, and that's actually where I qualified for the Boston Marathon. And honestly, after that, I just feel like I was training at a BQ at Chicago the year before, like just really trying for this BQ. And I felt honestly really drained and tired after finally getting that Boston qualifying time. I was told by people that I should maybe look into doing another marathon like before doing Boston, and I honestly just didn't want to. And so because of that, I leaned more towards like half marathons and even tried some like 5Ks in there, some 10 milers, but I really did not do a marathon. But I put in my time for Boston and I got Boston, and time came around to training for that. I was a little nervous, but also really excited. Like leading into that weekend, it was like a very exciting weekend. Like all my family came up to Boston to cheer me on. The Friday before, one of my best friends got married. By running Boston, it really got me out of that rut that I was having, I think, for a while. Like now I want to sign up for another marathon. Like I don't want to say too much, but like maybe like next, like early 2025, but I don't know yet. Just gained like more of an appreciation for running and realize now why I love this as a sport, love this as a hobby, and just like the community around it. Now move on to my Boston Marathon recap. So starting off, here is my Strava post, and as you can see my time in the bottom, so my official time was at 3:33:59, which I was very happy about because as you can see here, it was my second fastest marathon ever. So Boston was my fourth marathon, and it was, in fact, my second fastest one. So this is the course over here. So if you are not familiar with the course, it is a point-to-point race where they bus you all the way out here and you literally have to run all the way back to Boston. Let's move on to my mileage splits. So here are my splits from the marathon. And as you can see, I did start off a little bit quicker than I wanted. I was telling everyone leading up to my race that I had three main goals, and goal A was to go out there and get a personal best, which would be anything under a 3:16, which honestly my whole training cycle I was training for either like a 3:10 or a 3:15 marathon. And then my B goal was to go out and Boston qualify again. So that would be anything under a 3:30, which honestly with cushion, you'd probably want anything under a 3:25. And then my C goal was just go out there and have fun. Like you only get to run your first Boston like once. So I really just wanted to go out there, like take it all in. Hopping back up here a little bit to talk about these early miles. So when I first started, we started at 10 a.m. So very late kind of start time, and it was hot. Like I remember sitting in the corral and all around me, people were like, oh my gosh, like I'm already sweating. Like it's gonna be a hot one. And I was like, you know what, no worries. Like just here for the vibes, like here for the fun. Very early on, like I think in mile 3, like mile 2, like I felt like I was crawling to mile 2. I was like, oh my gosh, Megan, like this is mile 2, girl. Like you gotta like amp up your mental game a little bit. You gotta chunk this up somehow. How do you wanna do this? So what I ended up doing, focusing on where I was gonna eat my fuel and also where I was gonna see people. So I took a Morton Goo every 4 miles. And then at mile 9, I knew I was going to see my family. And then also at mile 16, I knew I was gonna see Colin. And then at mile 19, I knew I was gonna see my family again. And then I knew later somewhere over here, I did see Colin again, but it was like at mile 25.8 or something, and I was really out of it during that time. So bouncing back up here, I'm just going through the mile like play by play, and I'm trying to think of any other thing besides like what I already said. And my only really big thing that I just have not really encountered at any other race or marathon before was the crowds. Like the crowds were absolutely like phenomenal. Like I put my name on my bib and like I'd be running through these crowds and like I would think I know these people. Like they were just cheering their heads off for you. Circling back to my splits. So you did start getting the hills, I would say, at around like, as you can see over here in the elevation, like mile like 8, 9, 10, 11. They were very easy like rolling hills. And so I did slow down a little bit there as well as we started climbing those. But honestly, I did not feel like these hills were that bad. Like I think what most people don't tell you about is like, look at these like elevation over here. Like look at these hills that you're getting like very early on in the race. And I think those surprised me more than the Newton hills. Like honestly, I remember when I got to the sign and it says like, you have conquered the Newton hills. I honestly remember started crying almost. Like I remember tearing up, but I was also so out of breath and tired that I had to like reel myself in because it was like the last climb and I just hyperventilating. I was so like just overcome with emotion and had to really reel it back in because like, man, you can't do this right here. Like you got to finish. You still got like 5 more miles, like keep it together. But I remember I was just so happy to see that sign, and that was like another one of the highlights from this race. Bringing it back down to here, the later miles. So this was a struggle, I must say. I started getting some really bad cramping in my stomach. I have used Morton's my whole like training cycle and I don't really know what happened here. It just didn't go well. So I am gonna maybe see if I want to try something else my next training cycle, but like I just got really bad cramps and I know it was hot. I was taking water and Gatorade from every single stop just to make sure I was getting enough electrolytes and water and hydration. But these last miles were I just kind of crawled. It's like we were coming up to right on Hereford and then left on Boylston Street, and the crowds are just having it. Like you are just living your best life. And I remember like just becoming so alive again and be like, yeah, Megan, you got this. And finishing strong. And then after I finished, I was really lightheaded and like nauseous. My stomach was really upset, and I got nervous because a while ago in Chicago, I did in fact have to go to the medical tent after that race. So I did go to the medical tent for a hot sec, and then they gave me some Gatorade, and I was all good. I was like, okay, thank you. Like, I'm ready to check out. Like, need to go see my family, need to go see my friends. I guess that's pretty much it for my Boston Marathon recap. Okay, so one last thing I want to touch on is like, as you can see here, you can see the elevation and like, look at those hills in the beginning and like, yeah, that hill at the end, like that got me too as well, like as you can see with my pace. But overall, like I absolutely loved this race. Like it's not like anything else I've ever run. And if you have the chance to either time qualify or do a charity or somehow make your way to Boston, I highly recommend it. I'm even wearing my Boston Tracksmith sweatshirt as I make this video, and it just brought me so much joy and so much appreciation for the sport, and I just can't say anything bad about this race because it was an astronomically like amazing day. And yeah, it wasn't the outcome like I was exactly looking for, but I am very thankful that I was able to make it across the finish line with a smile on my face. And I hope you enjoyed this quick little marathon recap.